This is the sample demonstration program from the chapter that deals with timers, and this is just a short demo. It contains a timer, and you'll notice when you have timers they appear down here on the component tray. The way you get a timer to work with your form is you come down here under components and you can double click timer and it'll put it down here in the component tray. Kind of like when you had the menu strips, they go on the component tray as well. I'm going to delete this one because I have one here already. And you have some properties associated with the timer. A name, started with the prefix TMR. Enabled means true, so that means it's ready to start executing tick events, right? It's been enabled. And the interval. An interval of 1,000 is 1 second, so if you wanted a 5-second interval, you could put 5,000. If you wanted a half a second interval, you could put 500. Okay, and this is the code here. I'm just going to run it for a second so you can see. Every time the timer clicks, it's going to increment the seconds that appear here. And then I can click on Stop Timer at any time. When I click on Stop Timer, this stops, and the title on my button changes to Start Timer. And then, of course, I have Exit, which is me.close. So let's just take a look at right here. The button toggle timer click event. So when I click on that button, what happens is, if it's enabled, meaning it's actually executing seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I click on it, then it will set enable to false and the button will say start the timer. Okay, if it's not ticking, then it'll set it to true and the button will say stop timer. So this just tells you what's going to happen when they click on the button, but what you also have is what's called a timer event. If I double click on the timer, you'll see the code that gets generated is a timer tick event. So every time the timer ticks, remember the interval is 1 second, it'll increment the number of seconds and it'll take that new value in seconds, it'll put it on the label on the screen. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to run this. Now watch, at this point it's just running, so I want to click on the button. When I click on the button, what's going to happen is it'll set this to false and it'll change to start timer. Okay, so this stops clicking and it says start timer. If I click on this button again, it'll come in here, and since it enabled is false right now, it'll come down here, it'll set it to true and it'll say stop timer. See, and it starts incrementing the seconds again, and then exit. So that's just a simple use of a timer in a program. A lot of times they're frequently used for games, but they have other uses as well.